Hi everyone. Good evening, good morning, wherever you're from.
Hi everyone. Hi Nechama. Hi Johnny in the background.
He's resting.
Yeah.
Cheers, Yutam, to the
Cheers.
first live show in this series.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. Thank you. Thank you for joining. We would love to hear where you guys are from. Please um, uh, be active. You can tell us about it. We're going to be available on the chats. Welcome to this first ever live session. Um, my name is Itam Ashkenazi. This is Nechama. My first question is going to be actually for you people of the audience, people of YouTube, is um, what is your background? Please write it in the comment section or in the chat, in the live chat. Is it architecture, BIM, Revit, groupies, Nechama's fans? Yeah, we have a big crowd of fans of Nechama that I know are gonna join.
Hi,
They have
Alex
not
from Jerusalem.
Revit. Hey Alex, hi Oded, hi Pavel. Hey, Ilya. Yeah, so what we're gonna do today is we're just gonna start producing the series, which is going to talk through landscape architecture in Revit. Nechama, as you know, is the master and the guru of anything that is landscape architecture and BIM within Revit. This is the place for you guys to ask questions. This is the place for you to actually share from your own projects, whether it's something good or frustrations that you may have. Please ask away. It doesn't even have to happen during the live show. You can email us, you can comment or send us a message on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and then we will talk through the whatever project it is, or the whatever problem you may have in our next weekly event. Um, this is it. Today, I think we're only going to talk about topographies or mostly deal with topographies. Nechama, I think it's your go. I'm going to ask
Great.
questions like as we go. And of course, any questions that you may have, please write it down and uh, we'll try to answer it.
All
Hey,
right.
Stone Throw. Hey,
Okay,
Anjana.
yeah. So as Yotam said, this is going to be the first of what we hope to become a series of YouTube lives, and the purpose is really to teach you guys everything we've learned and kind of have another resource out there for all the techniques, but do it a little bit quickly, not a huge webinar every time. So we're going to focus on a specific topic every time. And we have chosen to start with the topic of topographies because, well, topographies are kind of one of the biggest things that we are doing here at Environment for Revit. And what I was thinking is that today I will present to you a small workflow with our topography tools, and we will see it both in Revit 2024 and in Revit 2023, so we can kind of see the evolution of these workflows. And I actually think that they became a little bit easier in 2024, although still kind of the same. And the purpose of today's kind of webinar, or whatever this thing is going to be, is not only to see this specific workflow, but to kind of understand the shift in thinking when we are designing landscapes. So we're gonna start with maybe a pretty picture over here. That would be nice thing. So topographies in Revit, when I'm saying topographies in Revit, I'm not only saying, the green areas, but I mean everything that has a shape of the ground, whether it's pathways, sidewalks, stairs, plazas, everything that is a part of the landscape is what we refer to as topographies, and we're basically using topography tools to kind of create each and every piece of this landscape. And then up until now, landscape architects got used to kind of thinking about these topographies or these elevations in terms of very specific levels, which means they were kind of looking at these things in a plan view. Let me see if I have a good plan view somewhere over here. So they were looking at it in plan view, and they would say, all right, so the level here is that, the level here is that, and then starting to just place levels at places. And you would have to do calculations and understand each and every level in your project. And what we're trying to do with topography tools is to take it to the next level, to be very BB and to be a little bit more parametric. And the concept is that I actually need to think not what is the level in each point, but I want to think, what does this thing do? So for example, I want this walkway to connect from this point to this point in a certain slope. And that's the language that we are trying to speak with the topography tools. And today's workflow, I hope you would like it. This would be a very good example for how we think strategically with the topography tools. I want to remind you all again that you are very much welcome to ask questions in the chat. And if I would not pay attention to these questions, then Yotam would make me. So feel free to ask questions as we go. And I truly hope you would like it, because if you like this session today, then we will do more of these and maybe get some guests after that. All right, so let's start. I'm gonna go to 2D view and 3D view and a plan view all at once. And the example that I'm going to give you today is how to create this plaza that goes from the building over here all the way to the street. You can already see that in the plan view, I have my design in detail lines, and this is a practice that I really like doing. And a lot of times landscape architects are asking me, oh, but I'm used to working in plan view. Well, that's okay. Just keep doing what you do. Keep thinking your design language the way you think, but don't forget, think about the geometry, and then on a separate or maybe in a different phase, think about the 3D of your landscape, and that's exactly what we're going to see today. So I'm going to take my picture off the screen, so just so you can see the entire Revit screen over here. And this is what we're going to model. Pay attention, we are in Revit 2024 right now, and we're going to explore all these workflows with the Toposolid tools, with the topography tools on the Toposolid, and as I said, later, we would go to Revit 2023. So over here in the environment ribbon, we have our topography tools. And for those of you who didn't get the chance to try them, this is basically like you're entering one editing mode or one command, but you have a set of tools over here. For those of you who do know the topography tools, here are 3 new things. We have the main properties, the edit sketch, and the match reference surface. These are all additions to the Revit 2024 that we will explore today. So before we will explore the new features, let's just explore the regular strategic topography workflows that we're doing with the topography tools. And this is mainly these features over here. So when I'm talking about strategy, I mean, instead of saying the point over here would be 135 and this would be 136, I want to say I want points throughout my facade or next to my doors, and I want them to go and connect to the street, right? So when I'm saying that the topography tools are actually providing strategy, it's actually a lot more simple. It's either placing a point, placing points on lines, placing points on edges, placing points on faces, interpolating, which is the insert midpoint, or providing a slope. These are the main methods to how we create topographies. So the first thing that I want my plaza to do, and I'm actually starting by designing the elevations, and my second step would be to give it the boundaries and the shape. The first thing I want my plaza to do is to connect to the building. Of course, this is a linked building in my model. And you guessed it right, I'm going to start with the From Edge tool, which is absolutely my favorite. So let's go to From Edge, and it can either do one point or whole edge. Don't forget to leave the chain option open here. By the way, pay attention that I'm actually using Toposolid now, and even though I can use Toposurface, this option is still available in Revit 2024 if you're using environment, but for now I'm just going to use the Toposolid. So let's go to From Edge, whole edge, chain, and all I have to do is just to go here, take a look at my 2D view. As I click, you can already see the elevation points. Let's do the same thing under the doorways over here. By the way, if I want to deselect, I just have to click on it again, and you can see that the points are disappearing. So let's select again. Now don't be confused. I know it looks awful lot like a Toposurface, but that's just the graphics that we chose to use because it's very convenient. So now if I like where my points are placed, I'm just going to go with Insert Points. And the next step is I actually want to delete this bunch of points over here. So how do we delete points? I'm just going to click on Escape. Once I click on Escape, you can see that Topography Tools are now going back to the defaultive mode, which is Selection mode. So that's very simple. I could just go here, drag select, or select one by one, and now I have all kinds of options, all kinds of things that I could do with the points that I selected. All I want is to simply delete these ones. Also, I want my topography to be a little bit bigger than a plaza. Always design your surface a little bit bigger than the end result you want to have. So I will just select this point over here and use the Move tool to drag it a little bit out. So now the next thing that I want to do is to connect my plaza to the street. I'm going to go back to the From Edge tool, and this time I will use the 1 point, right? So I'm going to go a little bit here, and again, take a look at my 2D view. You will see that appear. 1 point over here, then another point over here, and another one over here. Now they're still blue. If I want to join them, or if I want to add them to my surface, I'm just going to use the Insert Points over here. And you can already see my surface is starting to become what it is. All right, so next, what I want to do, it's not enough for me that my surface is connecting the building into the street. I also want to send all the water in a specific direction. And the strongest tool for landscape architects or for site designers to do that is by just using slopes. So what I want to do now, I want to use the Slope Path tool over here. The Slope Path tool, what it's doing is taking 1 point, and then it gives me a vector or a certain direction. And whenever I click again, that's where I get the second point. So let's see how it works. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. You will see that in Revit 2023, it's a lot faster, but it's improving all the time. So let's click on the Slope Path. First point over here, and over here I have this, what do you call it, catch basin. You can see it over here. So I'm just gonna take my pink line and click over here. Now, one thing that happened that is really nice with the Slope Path tool you can see that the elevation here is 137.49, and you can see that over here I get the start and end elevation and the slope percentage. So I have total control over what is going on along this line. I could change the slope percentage, I could change maybe start and end elevation, but actually here I'm pretty happy that I could just snap from the building to the street. And I'm happy with the negative, it's almost 1% slope. So I'm happy with it. I'm happy with how the points are laid on my surface. And I'm just going to go with insert points. Don't worry, this would work just the same with every units that you're working in. So whether you're working with 1 to 12 inches or whatever unit format you're working, this would work just fine. So we have our surface. Before I go on, I just want you to pay attention that I didn't calculate any of the elevation points I just placed on this surface. Every point I placed was according to some kind of rule or logics that I wanted to have. So yeah, Yotam, do we have any questions?
I actually have a question. So my question is, I have the flexibility of controlling myself the slope or the start end position, the first elevation point or the end elevation point. My question is, if I'm changing the slope, will it affect the starting elevation point or the end elevation point, or both? Do you understand my question?
Yep, I understood your question. That's a good question. So if you change the slope, it would only affect the end elevation. Actually, the only value here that you cannot change is the start value, but you can change either the end elevation if you choose the elevation method over here. And if you choose the slope method, then you can just change the slope value. But that's yeah, you'll only change the end elevation. All right, don't forget, if you didn't like what you do, you always have an undo and redo button. So now that we have the surface and it's in place, the next thing I want to do, and that's a Revit 2024 specific feature, is to go to the main properties. And over here, I actually get to define what Toposolid type do I want to use. Now, this actually changes only the Toposolid type. Don't forget that Toposolids are kind of like floor. The out-of-the-box Toposolids are always with variable material. In these cases, I usually leave them without a variable material. If you want me to do a session just talking about what is a variable material and how do we use it and when do we use it, give us a comment and we'll probably make a topic out of that. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to define this Toposolid, and that's why I'm going to see more contour lines. And that's another really strong thing about the topography tools, is that when you edit Toposolid, you can't really see the contour lines as you're editing, but if you're using Environment for Revit, you can see the contour lines. And contour lines in Toposolid are defined by type. So that brings me to the next tool that I want to use, and that's actually the insert midpoint. So this is kind of interpolation. We're adding information, we're adding points in between other points. So you can see that some of the contour lines that I have here are a little bit crooked. I'm just going to go with insert midpoint, and I will add information in order to make my design a little bit more straight. You can see that what I did with the insert midpoint, I clicked on the first point and the last point, and Environment automatically offered me where do I have to add some of my points. Sometimes that's enough. Let's click on Insert Points and see if it was enough. Sometimes I would have to do it more than once, or I have the option to change this density slider over here. And you can see that I have more points, and that smooths my design. I'll do it again between here and here because I actually need to touch up this corner. And I think that my surface is now pretty perfect. That's how I want it. Let's click on Finish and see what's happening. So I have now my Toposolid, It's quite perfect. I like the way it looks. Let's go to annotate, take the spot slope, and just see how we made sure that the water are running exactly to this catch basin. But you probably noticed that this is not my design. My design is very wavy and very nice. I invested a lot of time doing it, right? So how do we make this happen and still maintain this perfect slope throughout the plaza with different design elements? And that's another really nice improvement with the topography tools in Revit 2024. So let me just select my Toposolid. And in the Modify Toposolid tab, if you have environment, you would also see the topography tools and the Modify Topography. Let's go to Topography Tools again. And as I told you, we have the Edit Sketch option. So we're just going to use Edit Sketch. And I'm going to delete this defaultive sketch that was created automatically. I'm going to delete this one and just use the pick line tool to sketch away my design. I'm going to use the trim tool over here, and that's basically going within the topography tools to sketch my design. So all the points that I entered are still going to remain in the memory of this Toposolid, but the result would only be this sketched boundary that I just created. So let's click on Finish, and let's see the result that I will get over here. All right, so sometimes it takes a little bit of time to calculate because the sketch is a little bit bigger than what we see. Up. That's nice. So sometimes this happens in every live show. So what I will do right now, instead of going on in Revit 2024, I will just do the same thing in Revit 2023, as you can see over here. And we will kind of go through the process again, which is going to be pretty easy. You will see how similar it is in Revit 2023 and Revit 2024 all together. And then we'll go back to Revit 2024 and move on with this process. And of course, as I always say, no demo is perfect if Revit doesn't crash, right? So let's go to environment. And now don't forget, we're in Revit 2023. Let's go to environment, topography tools, and go to the from edge option. Let's go to whole edge. Pay attention, we have the same tools in Revit 2023, but we don't have the edit sketch or the match reference surface. So again, take a look at my 2D view. You can see that the points are placed at the correct location. Let's click on Insert Points, go again to Escape to get to the defaultive selection mode, and delete these extra points. I'm going to go with the from edge 1 point to connect to the sidewalk again. Insert points, and here again, I'm just going to select this point and move it a little bit out to create my topography, my reference surface or help surface. And I'm just going to use this slow path over here. Let's click one time, second time, and you can see it's the same thing basically. I can change either the end elevation or I can change the slope value, but I'm pretty happy with the result as it is because I have the exact elevation, exactly the elevation that I want. Insert point, and let's use the insert midpoint, which is some kind of interpolation, to just smooth it out a little bit more and make it behave like I want to. Click on Finish, and I have my surface. Now this is Revit 2023. We do not have the Toposolid. What we do have are floors and topographies. So we're using the topography as a reference surface to design our slope, but we're going to take our floors and use the shape by topography feature to actually match the elevation of this floor to the reference surface, to the topography that we created as the elevations of this plaza. Pay attention that I have this floor over here, which is attached to the bottom. This is because it has a variable material. That's exactly how the Toposolid behaves. Let's go to the edit type over here and turn off the variable material. All right. So you can see that the process in Revit 2023 is pretty simple. The only difference is that we're using floors and we're using the topography as a reference surface. So this topography is actually not attached to the floors. I can delete it if I want, but I would much rather hide it using a view filter. So if I'll go to view filters, you can see that I have a filter in my file that's hiding all the topographies with the help comment. So this means that I could just select the topography and add the comment help, and there it's gone. So before I move back to Revit 2024 and undo the embarrassing thing that just happened to me this second, before I go back, I want to show you how to actually complete this workflow before the Revit 2024 version. Because in this case, we have our floors, but now we need contour lines and contour labels in order to document this thing. So to achieve placement of contour lines on floors, we have this slab contours feature over here. And clicking on that allows me to select both floors and roofs. Click on finish. And now I can place contour lines, let's say every 10 centimeters. But these contour lines would actually be made of model lines. So I can choose any model line style that I have in my file. Let's select this contour line style and click on OK. And let's move to plan view, turn off these lines, and you can right away see that even using floors, I can get a very good documentation. I can now use the check elevation option over here to actually tag these model lines and show what their elevation is. So let's go 1, 2, and 1, 2. So now I have contour lines, I have contour labels, and I have floors that are behaving very similarly to Toposolid. Now let's go back to Revit 2024. And now I'm going to do the entire workflow again, very quickly. Wish me luck, cross your fingers. I think it'll go well right now. All right. So I'm just going to go to Environment, Topography Tools.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yes.
So, Stone Floor, which, by the way, what's your name? I would love to refer to you by your actual name. He asked just a little bit to go deeper into the variable material. Like, what is it? What is it good for?
Sorry, ask again.
Sorry. He what is the, like, he asked about the variable materials. I'm creating the question, which is what do we use them for? Because he said like it's a great topic for discussion.
Well, basically, I think it'd be a great topic for a session. The basic principle, if we imagine that, let's say this is a section view of a floor and we have, you know, the layers of the floor. Let's say this is gravel, sand, paving, whatever, okay? So when you use a regular floor and you lift one of the points up, then you'll get something like that. But if you use a floor with a variable material and you lift one of these up, then you'll get something like that. So the bottom part of the floor would always stay attached to the original placement level, and the volume would just increase, would just get bigger. And that's a variable material. What do we use this for? We use it if we actually need to know this volume, if we need the quantity of this volume. And that's definitely, I think, a topic for a session. Talk about variable materials. When do we use them? Why do we use them? And all kinds of limitations or examples of how we can use them. Great, great question. So let's try to finish this workflow. What do you say, guys? I actually have a small surprise for the end. Just
the way you ask the question, I'm gonna just answer it while Nechama is working on the model real quick. You asked if Revit can import topo data from the web or from external sources. The answer is yes. We're not going to go into it right now. We will go. It's a great question, and it's also a workflow and something that a lot of people have asked us before. I think it's a good subject to talk about next time, to be honest. Just importing, exporting external data.
And also, I think the question is what kind of data?
Yeah. Which you can answer, or we'll wait for next time if you want. This is Nechama's speed modeling. I've seen her do it. She's amazing.
You guys are following slope path. I'm just gonna take the slope and drag it all the way to this catch basin over here and make sure that the elevation is correct. Click on OK. By the way, pay attention that what I did right now is before I started modeling, I used the main properties to just define the type of the Toposolid that I want to use. You can do it before or after modeling. And I'm just going to use the insert midpoint to interpolate. Let's take the density all the way.
Can you hide my screen so they can see better? Or yourself as well, maybe?
Yes. All right. And all right, so insert midpoint. All right, so now before I'm going to click on finish, I'm actually going to use the edit sketch. So please don't crash Revit. All right, so let's use, pick line. Everything is pre-ready. By the way, these curvy, beautiful lines that I created are actually made from splines that I was able to convert to curves and lines using, of course, environment convert spline tool. So now all these points are going to stay here, but I'm only going to get the boundary of my Toposolid. All right, that's really nice. So now, how do I move forward to create the rest of the design, but not having to redo the entire elevation or redo the entire elevation points? So let's go to main properties. I'm going to take the pink floor type over here, and let's start with the edit sketch right now. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. We'll just use the edit sketch, 1, 2, tab select, and not like I did before, that before what I did is to just start right away with placing the elevation points. In this case, I actually just want to start with the boundary, creating the boundary of my floor. And as I'm done creating the boundary of my floor, pay attention, it looks like regular floor boundary, although it's a Toposolid. Let's click on Finish Edit Mode. It brings me right back into Topography Tools. And now, that's the nice part. Here, I'm going to use the Match Reference Surface. And I will select the first Toposolid I created as my reference surface. And you can see that I can inherit all the elevation points I created before, again, without even calculating, just by setting these rules and strategies. Click on Insert Points. You can see that I get the same surface, but don't forget, I already sketched the boundary. So once I click on Finish right now, I will be able to get the next piece of my plaza. All right, that's what I wanted to see. Otherwise, I would kill the programmers. Just kidding. Let's go to Topography Tools again and see again how it looks like. So now I'm going to go to the main properties and select a Toposolid in another color, let's say. I think this one is blue, right? Let's go to the Edit Sketch option, and again, I pre-sketched my design using detail lines, and this usually really streamlines the entire process, but it is also very intuitive for landscape architects because it is a lot easier to just sketch your design at the beginning of the project and then go ahead and go along with it. Prove, match reference surface, select the first Toposolid that I created. You can see that we inherit all the points and click on Insert Points. By the way, if you're watching a recording of this session and we are in the future, we are thinking of having the match reference surface as a totally separate feature outside of the topography tools to make it a little bit easier for you when designing multiple surfaces. So to make this a little bit less boring for you, I actually pre-sketched the rest of these toposolids in this view, and let's reveal them in here as well. So you can see that we have this one and this one and this one. Up, this one. Let's do unhide. All right. So what I did over here, I actually created this Toposolid with the native Messing Inside Toposolid tools, and I just created flat floors or Toposolid, whatever. And now, although I created them with native environment, with native Revit tools, I would go ahead and edit them. And you can see that once I click on a Toposolid, immediately I get the topography tools. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit them with topography tools. Now, when I do that, environment actually adds a bunch of elevation points on the boundary just to make sure that we keep the same shape that we originally have. So I'm going to delete these reference points and just use the match reference surface to again inherit my points from the original surface that I had. And that's going to take this Toposolid that I designed with Revit native tools and just bring it all the way up to this plaza that I created. I have to admit that my computer is also getting a little bit old, and I might just decide to get rid of it after this session. Although I've been saying that for a few months now, so, you know, just depends how lazy I will be. But you can see how easy this process is. I'm just selecting the surface, going to Topography Tools, selecting the reference surface, and just attaching everything to get this holistic plaza that I can see over here. Okay, so where are we on times? And Yotam, do we have some questions?
We don't have any specific questions, guys. If you have any questions about this workflow, let us know. We're good on time. It's been 40 minutes. I hope everything is.
Thomas here is saying that he would save after each step.
I
That's a
wanted to say
smart thing to do
Nechama is
regardless of
like
the tool that you're
living
using.
on the edge is classic Nechama.
I noticed that if I pick a level in the main properties, the Toposolid is still placed at sea level. I pick from edge, but when I hit finish, it moves down to sea level and I have to raise it. So the reason it still stays in sea level, it's supposed to change the attached level, but the elevation should stay the same. So if the elevation points on a Toposolid are at 0, for example, and then you change the attached level to 3, it's not supposed to influence the, I would call it the absolute elevation. In order to change the absolute elevation, you would have to change the points. And this was done for convenience because it just makes sense that if you want to change the elevation, you would change the points. So that's, again, that's maybe something that we can discuss in further sessions. To wrap this session up, and yes, programmers are safe for now. To wrap this session up, I would like to finish with a short tip of what is the best way to create openings in these toposolids, floors, and again, this is the same in Revit 2023 or 2024. So there are many ways of doing it. You can either do it by sketch boundary, but if you change the boundary, you would actually lose some of the elevation. You can also do it by using a void form, but my favorite method is by using the architectural opening. And you can see that if I use the architectural opening to create an opening in a floor, it would not change any of the elevations. So it would kind of keep the original shape that I have over here. And I cannot finish a session without showing a little bit of the modified topography tools. So what I will do to wrap up and to finish with something a little bit fun is to use the topography tools over here from edge, of course, whole edge chain option. And I would just create a nice gardening area on the boundaries of this floor over here. Let's give it a negative, I don't know, 10 centimeters. So you can see that the from edge option also allows you to give an offset from the surface. And click on Insert Points, click on Finish. Oh, by the way, this is the variable material, so it's attached to the floor over here. I'm just going to change the type to not variable, gardening and soil. Let's go to modify topography over here. And if you guys don't know these tools, I think it's one of the nicest things that we have here in environment. And these are basically a bunch of tools that are meant just for sculpturing the landscape. So if with the topography tools, we were talking about a specific strategy to every point that we're placing, here you can see this grid that I have on my surface. I'm actually going to place a grid of points on top of my surface to make a very, very smooth shape. And the shape that I want to show you today, let's use the inflate surface and just inflate this topography area, inflate it to create this gardening hill on top of my plaza. Let's click on Apply Changes. By the way, you can see that I have here an indication of how many points would I have after I finish this process. Click on OK. And there we go. We got our really nice grassy hill. So that was the workflow that I wanted to show you today, both in 2024 and 2023. You can see that in 2023, we actually used a view filter to hide a help topography, and we were doing the same thing with floors. But to finish up the documentation, we used the slab contours and the check elevation tools. However, in Revit 2024, that we have the Toposolid, contour lines are natural to the Toposolid, and it kind of saved us some of the work. And instead of using a Toposurface as a reference surface, we kind of used environment topography tools to remember where these elevation points are, and we transferred this information from one Toposolid to another to create these really, really nice design.
So yeah, there's a couple more questions, really good ones, if you have 5 more minutes. One of them is John is asking if it's possible to copy the points from Toposolid or Toposurface and use them for a floor. Yeah, roads, for example, or anything else.
That's actually a really good question. So, what we are working on now, and I think we should have Ilya answer in the chat. I'm not sure if it would be ready because we're gonna have a new update in about few days, 1 or 2 days. So we're working on a new feature that would allow you to actually take floors and convert them into Toposolid. So you wouldn't have to actually copy the points, you would just be able to convert a floor element into a Toposolid element. And this should be available pretty soon. That's pretty progressing. That's quite progressing right now. I hope I answered these questions.
I think so, but what about the opposite? So you kind of went into the um, showing basically the um, basically to copy the points from the elevation points from the topography into the floor and not the other way around. You kind of went into it a little bit.
So if you want to place a floor on a Toposolid, you could just use the shape by topography. But if you want to place a Toposolid on a floor, then you should select the floor and convert it into a Toposolid. I think that's basically what we do. But the shape by topography in the Revit 2024 version is definitely good to work also with Toposolid as topographies. So you can definitely drape floors or roofs on top of Toposolids.
Okay, I think that covered it. Morris asked because you just showed the architectural opening. Do architectural openings have any kind of influence on the mass of the Toposolid itself? For calculation?
Yeah, so if you mean, if the question means, do they have an influence on the volume calculation? Because when I select a Toposolid, I get a volume calculation of this Toposolid. So if you're asking whether mass or floor openings influence the volume, the answer is yes. And this is one of the most important reasons why Autodesk created the Toposolid to allows us to create or to do Boolean operations on these Toposolids, which were not possible on topographies before. So I hope, Maurice, that this answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Because it wasn't possible before. If any of you guys have any more questions, shoot them now. If not, thank you so much for coming. If you're watching it in the future and you have other questions or topics that you want us to discuss, please just comment on this YouTube video below because the chat is not going to be available. And yeah, with time, we'll answer all of them. Thank you, Nechama. You did great. Revit, you crashed once, which is also kind of a decent outcome.
Yep.
Thank you guys. Thanks everyone. And we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Thank you everyone for joining us. As Yotam said, leave us a comment if you want to see more videos.
Bye. Have a good night.